Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about John Madden Football.
Yes.
Do you want to drink?
Yeah.
Do you want to party?
Is that your John? Is that your Hank Jr.?
You're saying that it was less than ideal?
Do you want to drink? Do you want to party?
You do a much better Hank Jr.
You got to look
than I
more
do.
grizzled than you do.
Yeah, I don't have the beard for a good Hank
That's
Jr.
right.
That's true. But before we get into some John Madden, we got some feedback from last week. Both Matthew Perron and Daz are both in support of the boat challenge. They have some unplayed Steam libraries, Dreamcast games, and things. So
Yeah, we've all got those, don't we? Yeah.
if you want to get on board the boat challenge and try and not buy any new or used games, books, DVDs, anything like that this year, and just play what you've got, write in and let us know.
There's got to be a caveat to that, and that's this. If you fall off the boat, so to speak, you've got to write in and tell us what you buy.
That's true. That's true. That could be more entertaining. And Matthew also wrote in and said that the Coleco Gemini was a system. He mentioned that he had a Coleco Gemini last episode. He said that was a system that Coleco put out that played Atari 2600 games. And
I saw that, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I'll tell you why I'd forgotten about it. I have a set of the controllers from one. I totally forgot about it because the controllers were wacky because if you'll recall, the Atari 2600 had your iconic joystick, but they also had this awesome little pad you play like Warlords and Breakout with. The Gemini's controller, the top of it was a joystick and the bottom was a dial. So in one stick, you had both controllers.
oh, that's neat. It's almost like the pole position plug and play thing where the top of the stick, was your steering wheel.
Well, but I mean, the problem is it also wasn't very good. The one I've got, I hate. I bought it because wow, this is unusual, but it wasn't that good. But yeah, it's funny. Coleco. You think about it for a minute. Coleco had the Expansion Unit 1, Expansion 1, which was the Atari 2600 converter for the ColecoVision, and they spun that into their standalone product. And Intellivision did the same thing. They had their expansion. And I think they also had a standalone 2600. So everyone was getting in on that 2600 action.
So anyway, that's thank you for writing in, guys. And Retro Asylum made it a whole show on Amiga this last go round, and they covered some of the same games that we did, but there were some games that they talked about that I really want to try, especially that Street Fighter 2 clone, what it was like Elf Battle or something like that.
Oh yeah, and I will say I enjoyed the conversation about Lionheart, and also I was excited about that game that's like Lionheart that they covered.
Yeah. I thought it was humorous that one of the guys said, and Aaron really likes Lionheart, but the other guy, he doesn't like it. So I'm happily known as the other guy.
It's all coming together. By the way, boys, the check's in the mail.
So make sure you check out that it's Retro Asylum 174, the beautiful game, to get
I believe that was Mads that said that.
a whole show of nothing but Amiga.
By the way, Mads, we need some more of those CD32 videos out. Toot sweet, pal.
Let's see. That concludes our feedback section. Should we move on to
Amiga News.
We had a few. I'll tell you, Foal was went crazy at bonkers this week, and he beat me to the punch on a lot of this stuff. So let's see what we've got here. If I can dig it up. So, right out of the gate, we've got a, let me see here. Project X Special Edition 2. Let's talk about that first.
Okay.
We haven't done It's amazing that we haven't done that yet, actually. Project X was a shooter, a Team 17 shooter that was out, back in the glory days. and it was widely regarded as a very good shooter, very tough. But I remember playing it. I believe, do you remember the shooting parts of like, was it Super Frog? One of those games, or it might have been, I think it was, anyway, it was Team 17's one of their games. They actually sort of implemented the shooting parts of Project X into the game in a shooting segment. I'm thinking
Really? I remember there being a shoot 'em up section of Super Frog.
Right,
later
right,
on
and
in the
I
game.
think that was it. So anyway, so we haven't actually covered Super Frog, but they have basically they have updated it with basically a special edition with some improvements. And I believe this comes. I'm not sure if this comes directly from Team 17. I think it is. But whoever did it, it's an upgrade with a bunch of some special stuff. I haven't tried it yet, but we may actually have to just look over that.
Yeah.
Sometime that might be a fun thing to review.
Yeah,
since
this
we haven't
looks
done the
really
first one.
good.
Yeah, and it's your typical like super duper hard gimmick, but that's the way it goes. So next on the docket, that was from Folds. There's a campaign trailer and pre-order campaign for something called Alark City. Alar City, I see it. Yeah. Have you looked into this at all? This particular gimmick here. I don't usually cover the pre things. I think it's some sort of. I don't know if it's a walking shooter or.
This is. I think we talked about.
Did we talk about that last week? I couldn't
week.
remember because I remember I had the same problem.
This is the game that looks like Zelda, but it's not. It's like an action game. Do you remember this now?
I remember having the same difficulty, wondering what the heck that was. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I remember it now with the fireball. Mm-hmm. That one might be double posted up there then. We also had. I thought this was interesting. I found this on a site called Amiga Alive. Have you ever been to their site? I've been there a few times. This guy found some great footage, and this may be old footage, and I don't know who originally put it up. But basically, a news crew did a story on like demo coders, basically, and then went to their house and filmed them like actually making a demo.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just some goofs like in like a bedroom going like, "How's it going?" So I was like, "That's kind of funny." Yeah.
Look at these guys.
Yeah, they look. There's some youngsters there. I don't know. I'm not even sure which group this is. This video looks like it's pretty old. Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly the video's old, but I don't know how long it's been up. But I will credit Amiga Live for at least alerting me to it. I hadn't seen it before. So if you think that might be interesting, it is pretty amusing. It's from '98, by the way. I think that's all the actual news we had this week that wasn't site related. I don't see anything else. What do you got in terms of the site stuff? But we had quite a few things this week.
Well, the biggest news is that after an incredible amount of work, Dreamcatcher has launched his own book, his own ebook. This is a compilation of all of the articles Dreamcatcher has written for everything Amiga and before then AmigosPodcast.com. And maybe even some other stuff. And there are some new articles that haven't even been published yet. This is a labor of love from Dreamcatcher, and it's free. He's asking if you'd like to go over to his pledge page on Just Giving, if you'd like to give some money to Make-A-Wish in lieu of paying for the book. But this just went up, so you could be the first to contribute to this Just Giving campaign. And this is a huge tome. This clocks in at like 650 megabytes.
That was massive. I was going to look at it today, and it was too big for me to download. I was like, well, I'll do that when I get home.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh boy, because it's funny. I had I've been watching him do this, and I mean, he really had to sort of jump through some hoops to get everything to be set down right and a document or whatever. But I mean, I knew he worked on it for quite a while, and at everyone's urging, because we were like, listen, you need to do this. I don't know who exactly it was that pitched it to him first, but I was like, it's something you need to do. It'll be awesome, and he's finally done it. And to have all those articles in one spot, I mean, that stuff's ageless, and his writing is always top shelf. I mean, it's really good. In fact, this week he put out 2 more like really top shelf articles.
Yeah, and speaking of which, he just put this one out, I guess yesterday on the November 29th. Simon the Sorcerer. This is his full in-depth review of the game. I guess this is Simon 2. which is not a game that we haven't taken a look at. We did the original Simon, but not part 2.
It looks beautiful, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really looks nice. I really like the art style of this game. And so make sure you check that out. And finally, the Huckster, he's back. Gary Hucker, he is reviewing the VidAmiga image capture device for the Amiga. He's, the Huckster is the man when it comes to this hardware stuff. And he takes you through how to set up the box and the results and everything. And it's super, super cool. So
I've never even heard of this one. Like where he found this, I've not a clue.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen it. I've never heard
haven't
of
finished watching this yet.
I just it popped when I was on my way here, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. So make sure you check that out from Gary Hucker. And I think that is all of the site updates for this week.
No, not even close.
Well, continue.
Because there was tons of video that went up this week.
Okay, what else went up?
Let's talk about what you've been up to. I don't think we've mentioned it, and if we had, it's worth mentioning again, your efforts in terms of remastering the original eps, and also your sending out the pre-shows for those that care.
Oh, yeah. I guess we could talk about that.
Yeah. Considering you've been working like a dog on it, you should probably bill it.
Yeah. So there are two big things that I've been working on for the channel, both sort of going back into the vault and taking what I know now, such as it is, about audio production and cleaning up our early episodes. So our early episodes, we didn't really understand how mic levels worked and the right way to do that stuff.
Or had good mics,
Yeah.
or we used a tin can and a piece of string.
Yeah, it was a little rough for the first 150 episodes, and so but now what I'm doing is I've gone back and not only have I cleaned up the audio, but I've also added some animation and gameplay footage. So I've got right now, let me bring this up on the screen. I've got this is episode 2, Super Frog. And for the news segment and the hardware segment or whatever we're doing, I've included these animations. And then once we get into the game, while we're talking about the game, I've just included some gameplay footage over top of it. So if you're looking to listen to the early episodes and add a visual component, plus make they're more pleasant to listen to, check out the YouTube channel. And if you are more of an audio person, which is fine, I'm also updating all of the audio files, so they'll have that same remastered quality.
Nice job, Boat. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So that is the first thing that I'm doing. And then the second thing is we are opening the pre-show vault. So
Slowly opening it, cracking it open.
As you may know, if you are a Patreon supporter for the Amigos, you get access to a weekly pre-show that we do where we talk about our pinball collection, video, arcade games, pro wrestling,
band stuff,
random
sometimes
nonsense.
nothing of any consequence.
And so what I'm doing is I'm going back and trying to clean up some of the video and also remastering the audio. Now it's going to be painfully apparent that our camera for these older shows was not as good as the current camera that we have.
It was focused on us.
Yeah, but I've tried to do what I can to both zoom in, because a lot of the pre-shows were very, very tiny on the screen.
I can see what the camera was horrible. Look at what it did to my beard. What is going on there?
That's when you had that two-tone.
Man, that's what I stopped drinking all that milk.
So, if you're interested in listening to us talk about non-Amiga stuff, I'm going to release one pre-show a week, starting with the first one, which was 47, just dropped yesterday, and we'll do, each week going forward. So you'll never totally catch up unless you become a Patreon supporter, but if you haven't and you still want to check it out and see what all the fuss is about, you can check out the archive here.
I think you're doing a good job, Bo.
Well,
nice work.
Thank you.
We should also mention that this week we put up for video. You had a bunch of you've been putting up a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You want to continue on that?
There's some non-Amiga stuff that I've been playing. I did a Thanksgiving Friday free for all where I played some MAME stuff and played some. Just took requests from people in the chat. And then I'm also still continuing on with my playthrough of Star Tropics on the NES. I've got some Amigos plays of Batman for the NES. So yeah, there's still stuff coming out. And today, I think, was the day that we released our Double Dragon 2 Amigos plays video too,
we
right?
have. We're building up to. Might as well let the cat out of the bag. Next week we're going to be covering on the show the Double Dragon trilogy, and so we've been slowly releasing. We released episode 1 last week, of the playing. And this week was episode 2, and the next week will be Double Dragon 3. Do you remember the tagline of that one?
The Rosetta Stone.
The Rosetta Stone. It should have been World's Most Annoying Puzzle. That should have been that should have been the underlying name of that one. That's the one thing I took from that one. It was that god-awful puzzle.
I'll never forget that room.
And I've never been so happy to have bitten past a puzzle in my life. I did a little dance. But so next week we're going to do Double Dragon. It should be fun. But we had a good time playing those, didn't we? The Double Dragons. More fun than we probably should have had.
Yeah.
So that went up today. And so there's plenty of good stuff to watch on there. So, head on over.
Yeah. All right, Aaron. It's time to dig deep.
Amigos Game of the Week.
Into the annals of American sports culture and talk about John Madden Football. Now let's preface this by I want to recap the conversation we had last night, so we can. I want to have something to bookend this. So I've been doing my homework on this and looking some stuff up on the Madden series just to get acquainted with it, and I did I'm not gonna say a sizable amount of research, but I looked into quite a bit. And then Bo sent me a frantic message last night. Bo, tell the people what it said.
I said, Aaron, serious question. Are you sure you want to do John Madden Football tomorrow?
So that should give you an idea where Bo's coming from on the John Madden game. But we're going to get into it, and I think that we'll get into it, and then we'll talk about our thoughts on the actual game. So John Madden Football, as it was known in other parts of the world, John Madden American Football.
Right, I've got that. I've got the European box up here.
This came out in '92, and this was one of the games developed by EA themselves. They didn't develop a ton of stuff on the Amiga. They really only developed this and a few other games, and amazingly, we've covered a couple of these. They did Desert Strike, right? They did Marble Madness. They developed that. They developed Neuromancer. So we did Desert Strike, didn't we? And then we did 3 of those 4. They also did Imperium, which we haven't done, and this. So we've actually covered almost all of their entries on the Amiga. This came on 2 discs. Again, it was also published by EA. If you have to ask what they've published, aside from what we mentioned, they've done, Archon, Earl Weaver, Bard's Tale, tons of stuff over the years. This has 2-player support. The coder was a fellow named Gary Roberts. It's funny, Gary Roberts has a bio in the book, in the actual instruction manual for this, which I'll just read a little bit about it. He was obviously not from around here because he went to college and did his A levels in computer science. Is that a UK thing?
Yeah.
A levels. That's what I thought. He wrote another game for the Amiga called Tanks, TANX. That was published in Amiga Action, the magazine, and so he did the conversion of this to the Amiga. He had a team with him. Several other people, and again, these people have done some different stuff. One guy I wanted to point out was a guy named Carl Cropley, and the reason I mentioned this guy is I thought, man, they need 2 graphics guys on this, and because the graphics, if you look at this, are very similar to the Genesis, and I thought to myself, wonder why you would need. It seems like you just get somebody to convert this, no problem. Well, I think this guy, my theory is that he does cool opening screens, like still images. Mm-hmm. And I'll explain why. He did Burger Man and Jungle Boy and a game called RC Car, okay? If you look at all these games, they have one thing in common. They have really awesome opening screens, and then the rest of the game is, up and down. So that's my guess on him. The guy that did the music is a guy named Jason Whiteley, and he did some other EA properties, Desert Strike, Road Rash, Space Hulk. So we covered a couple of those. This game was out on the ECS, OCS, and again, it was American Football game. Now, this didn't actually get a wide release on a ton of things because at this point, John Madden Football was in its infancy. All right, well, I guess it'd be a toddler at this point. There was a Commodore 64 version. The Super Nintendo got a version, of course, the Genesis version. Now, this game came out in '92. Okay. To understand where it came from, you've got to look at. We've got to start at the beginning of the Madden franchise to a certain degree. So, if you heard of a guy named Trip Hawkins,
He founded EA.
That's right. And Trip Hawkins was sort of a football statistical maniac. Basically, he was really into the stat side of the game. So much so that when he was in college, he tried to successfully convert over a game called basically Stratomatic paper and dice football strategy game.
Yeah, Statomatic. Yeah, that's
Right, and they did baseball and some
Right,
other stuff.
yeah.
And he converted it over at Harvard to one of the old computers. And so it was always his gimmick to want to convert to have some sort of football game.
Huh, how interesting.
Yeah, so it gets even weirder. So he thought, okay, here I am. He founded EA. So flash forward a few years. It's '84. He's like, I want to get to legitimize my football game. I'm going to get me a spokesperson, someone I can base it on. So Madden was not his first choice. Guess who his first choice was?
Okay, let me guess.
And I'm going to give you a hint. He has his own series, or had.
John Elway.
Close.
Okay.
Right era.
Dan Marino.
Still close.
There's
There's
a
only one
quarterback.
more of the big three of that era.
Oh, who is the other guy? What are his initials?
He put the kibosh on the Cowboys getting in the Super Bowl when you're with the famous The Catch.
Flutie? I don't know.
JM.
Oh, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
Yeah, I forgot he had a
So
series.
Joe
yeah.
Montana, for you that don't know anything about football, was a big deal. He played for the San Francisco 49ers, and later he played for
Kansas City
Kansas
Chiefs.
City. He didn't do much. I mean, he did okay.
No, he was on his way out.
But he was a big deal in San Francisco. So he asked Joe, but Joe already had a deal with Atari, so he had to back out. His second choice, this is even wackier, was the Cal University coach at the time, Joe Cap.
Really?
So this could have been Joe Cap football, but Joe Cap wouldn't take the gig without getting some kind of royalty action. So he so they didn't get him.
So did Madden not get any royalties from this?
Well, I don't know what their arrangement was, but that's why he didn't hire Cap. So in '84, they talked to Madden. And so the interesting thing about this is if anyone that knows anything about John Madden, the man, this is a lot like the Jimmy White
Snooker,
reversed.
yeah.
We know everything about it, and a lot of people don't.
Right.
John Madden was this big, heavy-set guy who coached a team over here called the Oakland Raiders. And he coached them to a Super Bowl victory. And he was this real loud-mouthed, outspoken goof. But he was very smart, and he knew a lot about football. Okay, and he gained sort of a legendary status in football for being this, nutty guy. And they used him as a commentator. He was a big-time commentator. Pat Summerall, John Madden. So one thing about John Madden, though, he never flew anywhere. He was scared to fly. He always drove.
He didn't drive.
He had the Madden Express.
He took a huge charter bus that was laid out like a luxury hotel.
Right. So, but in '84, he didn't have the bus, so he took the Amtrak.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
So Trip Hawkins and another fellow got on the train and pitched him this idea, and they spent 2 days with Madden going over a bunch of different football stuff. And he said, "Listen," he goes, "I'll do it." He goes, "But here's what I want. I want it to be about realistic football." He thought it would be a good tool to let people learn how football works, because football's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Right. So, but he agreed to let them make the game and endorse it. So there they go. So they put together the game. They were making it for the Apple. Okay, right there. Hold on one second. And so they put the game together. They brought Madden in to show it to him. Okay, and the first thing he said, he asked him, because is that a goal line play? And they're like, yeah. And he goes, not in my bleeping game. It's not. And his biggest problem with it is it only had 7-on-7 players. And football in America, it's an 11-on-11 players.
Right.
He's like, 7-on-7, I'm not going to endorse it. Go take it back to the drawing board. So they took it back to the drawing board, and this is where it gets real wacky. This game was in production for a long time, right? Again, this started in '84, and it went forever. So finally, they got something together with 11 players that Madden would give the okay, and they released it for the Apple. All right, and it didn't do all that well. It was out for the Apple II in '88. Okay, so they were like, "Listen, let's try this again. We're going to modernize it a little bit." And so, what next they did was they put it out on the Genesis, aka Mega Drive, and then once they put it on there, you've got more graphics hardware, better controller, everything against the Apple.
Right.
And it was a huge success. I mean, it blew up big time. And so the funny thing is, EA had kind of farmed out the making of the game. One of the people they'd hired to make the game brought a game to them. They're like, this is no good. We're not going to use this. But what we will do is we'll let you license this out to another game. And it became Joe Montana Football, ironically. Do you remember the Joe Montana series?
I remember. I've never played it, but I remember seeing it on the shelf.
So one of their rejects was Joe Montana Football. And that series itself was pretty popular.
Yeah.
And made a bunch of money. So this was in 1990. Okay, so the reason I go through all this rigmarole, so you know who John Madden is, and you know the history, because the wacky thing about Madden Football for the Amiga is, despite the fact that it came out in 92, it is directly based on the 1990 Genesis game. So in actuality, this is, I mean, if you throw the Apple version out, this is the first John Madden Football that was ever released. They're not counting the Apple. I mean, it's not. Obviously, the Genesis was released earlier, but it's the same engine, the same everything. And if you go and watch the Genesis version of this game, I mean, graphically, it's like a lower res version. It looks very similar. The menus aren't quite as nice as the Amiga. The sound's not as good, but it's the same game. Same fonts, same everything. You know, so it's very similar. So let's talk about the game. If you're not familiar with American football, we're not going to school you. You know, it's like somebody teaching us to play snooker. But we can say that, you know, you try to get the ball into your opponent's goal. They try to do the same thing to you, back and forth. That's basically the way it works. This game is a cut-down version of football to an nth degree. Again, you've got to consider when it came out. You do have 11-on-11 players. What you don't have is any NFL teams licensed, so there are no. You're not going to play the Dallas Cowboys and against the Pittsburgh Steelers, or something like that. It has no player licenses. So you're not going to see Joe Montana or Dan Marino or anybody else. These guys are unnamed, toiling servants. They have no identity. You're not even going to see numbers on their jerseys. They don't have any numbers that you can recognize. I guess the resolution wasn't high enough to even put numbers on there. You get a limited playbook. It's not huge, but it's okay. When I say playbook, it's a limited amount of pre-made routes and plays that your team can run. Okay. The lack of an NFL license at the time probably wasn't a big deal. Now that would be suicide. You can't do it anymore. You have to have the licenses. The funny thing I noticed about this was if you sit on the game screen at the end, and it may do it somewhere else, but at the end of the game when you finish it, it says the scores on the screen. The EASN, they present this like a sports telecast.
Right. And
the network is EA, Electronic Arts Sports Network. There'll be a shadow of that flies over the screen, like, it's kind of cool looking. And then a logo for the Players Association flies over the screen. Now, I couldn't find anything that said that this had a license from the Players Association, but I thought it was odd that would be there.
That is strange.
And I didn't see it anywhere else. Now, I mean, I could be an idiot, but I didn't see it pop up anywhere. I thought that was strange. But I don't know if it does it on the Genesis version or not, but it does it on this version. So I thought that was weird. So you can play one or two players. One thing that the Amiga version has that the Genesis version didn't have is that they added in weather elements. And they added in, you could have an indoor or outdoor stadium, you could have turf or grass, and you could have regular weather, you could have like snow, or you could have muddy, wet conditions. Those are updates from the original Genesis version. The funny thing is, by the time this came out, the Genesis was getting the next version. So once again, the Amiga was lagging behind.
Right.
So all that said, my biggest complaint right out of the gate is there is no Dallas. I was appalled at this.
How could they leave out America's
They've
team?
got Cincinnati, for God's sakes. You don't have Dallas in there. But it doesn't matter, really. There's no team editing. I mean, really, it's pretty plain Jane in terms of your options. So all that aside, having played this boat, I'm sure you've played several games. Your thoughts just right out the gate on how it plays, how it simulates football, etc.
Well, the thing that made Madden unique among other games, I think it might have been, TV Sports, I guess, came before this, so maybe TV Sports and Madden together, were the first to popularize this. It's not a top-down view, but it's not a side-on view. It's sort of an isometric behind the back kind of look.
Well, TV Sports doesn't have this kind of look.
It's been so long since
I think it was
TV
more
Sports.
like a side view, as I recall. I don't remember it being. I don't think it looks exactly like this.
Okay, so that was unique. I never liked the Madden games, just as the 16-bit Madden games. I always liked the 8-bit Tecmo football games, Tecmo Bowl, Tecmo Super Bowl. They're a faster moving game. This game is kind of like TV Sports basketball. It just kind of chugs along. And I was not very good. Like any game that you have to read the instruction manual to figure out the right button combination to select a play is not okay in my book. Like in order to select a play on the Genesis, which I'm sure, like you said, this was the port of.
Yeah, if you watch it, it's exactly the same.
On the Genesis controller, you have 3 buttons. You have an A button, a B button, and a C button. You can still see A, B, and C on the screen. However, they mean nothing in this game because the Amiga only has 1 button. So what you have to do is you have to press the button, then press the direction, then release the button, then release the direction. If you do any of these things in the wrong order, the play will not be chosen and you'll be very frustrated. So that by itself turned me off. The speed of the game, like football is a fast-moving game. I mean, people complain that it's slow because there's a lot of downtime in between plays, but once the play starts, once the ball is snapped, things happen really, really fast. In this game, things do not happen very fast. Things take forever to unfold. The passing mechanic, again, this was a trailblazer. Instead of just lofting the ball into the netherworld, you could actually see your receiver in small windows that popped up at the top of the screen, and you could choose which receiver you wanted to pass to. That was really cool back in the day. But again, on the Genesis, you have A, B, and C. You choose which receiver you want to throw to. You have to do that same weird button combination, and you have to make sure that you're actually going to pass the ball and not dive forward, with doing the button the wrong way. Again, we run into the same thing that we talk about so oftentimes, just the limitations of a one-button controller once we start to get into these console ports that have, 5 or 6 buttons.
Everything you said is true. The play selection was not tough. I don't have any problem with that. And plus, that works okay if you have 2 players, because it's hard to spy on you. You can still fool with the joystick after you've released that button.
Yeah.
Let's make one thing clear. When I say this is like the Genesis version, it was a straight-up, almost exact port, and not in a good way. Mm-hmm. They could have came up with a better, certainly in the menus at least, a better mechanic for picking plays than having the A, B, and C, which make no sense. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. That's the truth. The pop-up windows are neat, yet I've never liked games that had them, and for this game is the perfect example. When you're running a play as a quarterback and those windows pop up, it's great. You could sort of maybe see if your guy's open, maybe. But if you're on defense, it covers the entire field. You can't see what's going on. The good thing about it is once the quarterback picks his receiver and those go away, the ball lofts so slowly that you can see what's going on. And since you're the quarterback and the receiver, mm-hmm. you're basically throwing to yourself. You have time to sort of position yourself.
The ball moves so slowly that it's almost like you're a center fielder and you can run up under.
Yes, it is. And the other annoyance is that I'm like you. I had to look up the controls. Like I never knew how to spin on this. Spin move is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
To spin on this, you have to completely let go of your joystick and then press the button. And your guy does it's more like a do-si-do than a spin. I mean, it's like the ballerina elephant. I mean, it's a slow spin. And you've got to be careful, like Boat said, to keep your guy from diving. And really, when does diving, I mean, I would have taken diving out. It doesn't help at all.
Right. All it does, and I find this to be the case in almost every football game. You always dive when you don't mean to, and the play is over.
That's true. Now, all that aside, the good points of the game, it looks good, which I like. It's a very cunningly put together game in terms of the presentation. I like when it comes on, the opening theme is awesome. I thought it was an awesome song. I like the opening screen, looks cool. an announcer comes up and he says, hello everyone, and welcome to John Madden Football. And it's synced up. It's like the TV sports guy, but he actually talks.
He speaks, yeah.
And it's cool. He just says the one line. It's got a cool overview where Madden goes over the team you're playing and the team you're playing against and their weaknesses and strengths, which is cool. That's kind of realistic. So he basically does some analysis. It's got a cool screen. I always loved this back in the day when I had got my RAM expansion. It says, "You have it, we used it." RAM, extra RAM detected. It says that when
Yeah,
I
I
always
like
think that
that.
was cool. It makes me feel good about my system.
Yep.
When it says that. It took me a while to find out how to hit timeout, and I went to the documents. You hit F1 for the timeout, and to shift escape quit, which I had to find that out too. I like the stats halftime. I will say the stats screens. Madden looks like some kind of mutant. I don't know who to put. I don't know. I think that graphic must have came directly from the Genesis, and it is horrible. It's a horribly ugly graphic. This game has no commentary at all. So Madden only says a couple things. I mean, I can't remember what he says. I think he just says one or two words at the beginning, and that's it. The manual is sort of important for this game, not just to find out how to control it, but when you're in a play, you can do audibles. And audibles means you can change the play without anybody knowing it on the fly. And unless you have the manual to tell you what your team's audibles are, you don't really know what you're going into.
Right. And I would call audibles on, when I played this on the Super Nintendo, I think it might have been select or something called an audible, but I never knew what I was audibling to.
Right.
So.
Now, all that aside, and everything Boat said, I can't deny any of it. But all that said, I think it plays a good game of football. I played it last night. Now, again, I love TV sports basketball, which is a slower game. I'm old, I guess. And this game, all of its failings aside, it plays a pretty good game of football. Like, I couldn't find a play I could score with every time, for example. I won 2 games last night, and I won 2 more games a couple nights ago against various teams. And they were good, close games. They weren't runaways. Now, granted, a couple times I screwed up, dove when I shouldn't have, so they probably could have been blow-away games. But they were good. The bad thing is I can't find any way to adjust a difficulty level. I guess it's only got the one. Again, you've only got those 16 teams, which that sounds like a lot, but it's not. And plus, there's only one all-star team. You can't make your own teams. There's no way to personalize it. They didn't do anything, the stuff that you would expect in a PC type football game. I want to have some customization because I'm on a PC, and that's kind of irritating aspect of the game. But I mean, it's got safeties, extra points are there. I successfully onside kicked, which is not, I can't hardly do that anywhere. That's not, and it was a good kick too. The kicking game is not difficult, but it's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
What did you think about the game? Aside from the slowness, I mean, did you think it played a decent game of football?
Well, I felt like I was constantly I would want to do something with the button, and whatever I wanted to do with the button, it was the opposite thing. And so, I'm sure that if I would have had the manual right in front of me, because to spin, what do you do to spin?
You hold the button down.
You just hold the button down
and then let it go,
and then to dive, it's just a quick tap.
It's a quick tap and a direction, forward direction.
Okay, but then there's also a boost, like a turbo.
That's when you hold the button down with the direction.
Right, and so that was, and again, I think it just speaks to where we come from as gamers, because you're used to putting up with a one-button solution, and I'm not.
That's true. I can't sit here and say it's the most enjoyable thing. I mean, really, if you could play the Genesis version of this versus this, the Genesis version is probably more playable strictly because of the controller. It doesn't look as good, doesn't sound as good. But I remember when this came out, I was pretty excited about it, because I had played some other football games. And really, if you think about it, before John Madden, what were the big football games? 10-Yard Fight, Tecmo Bowl were the big ones. Were there really, Atari football, Real Sports, stuff like that. But there wasn't really probably the best one of the era that wasn't Tecmo was probably in television football. It's probably the best one. Another game that requires you to have that manual or your bone. And really, in television football was not viable. That sort of football wasn't viable anymore. You had to have something that had on-screen menus. Basically, this is the evolution of that to a certain degree. Again, if you're looking for arcade football action, this ain't it. If you're looking for something that's a drink a cup of coffee type game and sit down and play it, where you've got time in between plays to take a sip and look around. It's a good game, and I kind of like those kind of lazy games sometimes.
Now, was this the only Madden game released on the Amiga?
This was the only Madden game released on the Amiga. Again, this was in '92, and by that time, I guess they realized EA really didn't have a much of a presence for. They didn't stick with the Amiga forever,
right?
And they sort of moved on. But this was, I kind of wish they would have released a couple of the other ones. Like, for example, I think it was 2 years later, the Madden came out that got rid of those pop-up screens and just let you use the field view to throw the receivers. A much better move. I think ABC Wide World Sports Football, or ABC Monday Night Football, also use those pop-up windows. It's another football game. In fact, I think some of the developers worked on this, or intermittently. A lot of different developers worked on the John Madden series. I think they were one of them. But again, I had the same trouble with that one. Those windows really get in your way, especially on defense. I don't see any advantage to them. Because when you're on offense, you just see your receiver in a window and he might put his arm up or something.
Well, you know that he's open. That's the thing.
Right, but I mean, you could do that without the windows, just show the screen. I'd rather just see the screen as opposed to see the window. So I think that was sort of a miss. The lazy port is a miss. It's hard to say I recommend the game, but if I look at the football games that I've played on the Amiga, I think this is probably the one I like the most because I think it's the most playable as a football game. I like Brutal. That was a pretty fun game, but it's not really football, is it?
Yeah.
And I like TB Sports, but as a football game, it's not that good. I like the presentation and stuff, but I didn't think it was that great a football game. Right. I like this was better than ABC. So this is probably the one I would recommend of the bunch.
We'll have to take a look at ABC just as an Amigos plays further on down the line.
I've played it in the past, and I didn't remember liking it as much as I like this. And again, once you get used to the controls on this, it's like any other Amiga game. Once you get used to it, you can sort of adapt to it over time.
Right. It's just a question of, do you want to put yourself through that adapting process?
I mean, I fell into this. Really, I'd say the biggest problem with this game, well, the controls are the biggest, and the speed. Again, if you're not into the slow speed, it's slower than TV Sports, in my opinion. It's really slow. To bring it to a close, I thought I'd mention this because it was kind of ironic that we'd be doing an EA game this week. EA has lost, in the past month, EA, the company, has lost worth in excess of $3 billion.
Oh my gosh.
With a B. Now, you probably know why. You've probably heard about the all this stuff with the in-game purchases, And it's funny to read this stuff. Thank God they didn't have this stuff back when we... Can you imagine? Because people are really upset about it. And the reason I bring it up is a fellow sports title, the new FIFA, is just littered with this. And I thought to myself, how are you going to shoehorn that into a FIFA game? Well, they do.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really angered the fans. I'm sure that a lot more people overseas know more about that than we do. But, EA's been around for a long time. It's not the EA that made John Madden anymore, that's for sure. No. And I read that last year, like I said, they made $800 million in just in-app purchases. So that's a big money maker for them. But if you ponder the fact that a company that's been around this long has lost that much money in 1 month, it's unbelievable to me that it lost that much. But I thought I'd mention it. So,
well, it's because the video game industry is larger than Hollywood, in terms of the money that it brings in. So those figures are not, they're huge, but they're not surprising.
Not to get political, but this is a lot like the net neutrality thing that we're fighting with right now. You can only push people so far before something goes down. And EA's been pressing people's buttons for a long time with these in-app purchases and these extra loot boxes and all this crap to get extra money. People took more than I thought they would. But it's very rare when a group of people get together and say no more.
Right.
Especially gamers, because they fight each other all the time. So it is sort of refreshing to see someone just stand up and say, listen, we've had enough of this.
Enough of this sort of thing.
So, review-wise, this game did well, actually. Mostly 90s. Even Amiga Joker gave it an 82, which is a unbelievable score. But I wanted to focus on this one score here. Amiga Power initially gave this game a 90%. And then they came back 2 years later and gave it a 33. And so I was like, man, what happened? So I went to read the review. And the reviewer straight up says he hates American football, and he hates this game, and he hates everything about it. And this guy hated football. So while they picked him, and he said, disregard the original score. This is the true score, 33%. He just killed it. So if you want to get a laugh, that's one to look up. I also had a look at this thing on eBay, if I can find where I put the dadgum thing. There were quite a few of these available. Here we go. In the United States, you can get a boxed one, $54, or best offer. You could probably get that lowered. Germany, this is funny. Sometimes this game was all over the place. Germany, $27 or best offer, shipped, US dollars. Greece had one for sale. These are all on sale when I checked, $27. And then the UK had one for $21 shipped. These are all US dollars. So it's funny. It's cheaper everywhere but America, but it's everywhere. There was a plentiful amount of these. So if you're into John Madden American football, you're good to go. One thing I meant to ask the chat room is, I know the NFL has a presence in the UK. And we also had the World League. Remember that? Does anyone over there care? And I'm asking you guys in the chat that are listening, and people that listen to this later, if you want to drop a comment, does anyone over there really care about United States football or follow it? And are there any big fans of it? How popular is it? Because I know they go to Wembley or whatever, and they get a stadium full of people. But I always wondered, now you were over there, do you remember how the popularity was in various countries? I mean, did anyone talk about UA's football?
American football is unknown in Asia.
Right, I can imagine that, yeah.
But at the same time, baseball is huge over there. I know that our fan Dasley, he's a big Redskins fan, and he's in the UK.
Oh, poor guy.
But I think it's sort of like, you could probably compare it to the amount of, let's say, Australian rules football fans in the United States. Like, there's a hardcore contingent of Australian rules football fans, but they are not a large group.
I used to, I'll tell you, back in the old days when ESPN2 was new and interesting, man, about 4 in the morning, I would watch the crap out of some Australian football. I'd never seen it before. And I was like, this is my sport. Just guys out there with no patches, beating the tar at each other. It was all like speedball or something. Have you ever watched any of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
And the best part is, when they get the ball across the end line and the ref walks up and he goes...
That's what I wish referees would do that here.
Give
them the guns.
It's the double.
Yep.
The double. But it's funny because the NFL worked real hard to establish itself in other countries, and it never really worked. We had a team in Barcelona and London, and
there was a whole Euro league.
Yeah, the World League.
Yeah,
but it flopped. They lost billions of dollars on it. And they still go over to Wembley. They had a game in Mexico, I think, this year. And I always wonder if it matters,
Well, they keep doing it, so it's making money.
What's more popular in your mind, okay? American football in other countries or European football in America? And I'm talking with the masses.
European football is so much more popular just because of the amount of people that play European football. I mean, every high school team in the country has a soccer team.
Are they fans of like FIFA league stuff?
Absolutely, they play FIFA every weekend on network TV.
But we don't know how much play. Like, I know they play the NFL every week in UK.
No, they don't.
Sure they do, because I watch the feed, so I know it exists.
It's not on network TV there.
I don't know what channel it's on.
It's on Sky Sports.
How much European football gets put on network TV here? Like tons?
A ton.
I don't know.
Every weekend. When you're watching football on Sundays, sometimes flip it over to another network that's not showing football, and they're showing ice skating and they're showing
every once
soccer.
in a while I'll see a soccer game on, but I don't see one that often.
It's on ESPN all the time. It's much more popular.
I'm not degrading it. I honestly don't. I'm asking because I don't know. I don't have cable.
I can tell you with full confidence that soccer is much more popular here than
That's got to be
American football is
deflating to the NFL guys because they've been trying for a long time.
Well, they're probably,
Then again, soccer's been trying to get over here forever.
Right. I mean, soccer should be the biggest sport in the country.
Like, I don't know anyone that's a huge soccer fan.
Well, you don't know many people.
I know a crap load of people.
But
Thank you very much.
But you know a lot of people that are into the same things you are.
No, I don't. I know tons of different people. How can you even say that? You don't know who I know.
I know everybody you know.
You do?
Right, I don't know everybody though. But generally, I think that if you go outside, all you have to do, you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be based on anecdotal evidence. Look at what's on TV. Look at how popular the sport is in schools, in youth leagues. I mean, all of those factors factor in that it has to be more popular. It just has to be.
I don't know anything about youth leagues and stuff. I don't know. I mean, when Luke gets up there, I'll find out.
Your kid has already played soccer some.
Right, but I mean, that doesn't mean they're a fan of, like, I'm asking people that were going to watch FIFA on TV or Arsenal take on Manchester United or whatever.
I think the majority of people that play soccer, they look up to European players, just like people that play American football look up to Deion Sanders.
So you don't think they would look up to an American star player?
I don't think so.
Do we have any?
I don't think that we have anybody that is that has the star power of the European players.
Who's the big European player?
I don't know because I'm not a big fan. I mean, I know like from when I
Ronaldo.
we know like
there two guys
I guarantee you we know Beckham and we know Ronaldo and that's it, right?
And the only reason I remember that is it's just got one name.
Right. And so there's again
Pele. I couldn't name any other soccer player.
We are not the prime demographic for this conversation. It would be interesting to talk to people that do play soccer that know a lot of other people that might be soccer fans.
You ever wonder why everyone knows who Pele is, even now?
I think that
I have no idea why.
Well, I think that he had a bunch of celebrity endorsements. I think that because he had the 2600 game. I'm sure he was on like boxes of like Special K.
He was
and
in
stuff
movies.
Like that.
I believe wasn't he in a movie with Sylvester Stallone where they played soccer for the Nazis? You remember? Does that ring a bell? Against the Nazis, not for them. Against the Nazis.
That sounds like a movie I need to see.
Yeah, we were at a POW camp. I know. It'll come to me.
Let's check out what the chat says. The chat says. So Jost in Sweden, he says, we know it exists. A few people like it, most don't.
Okay, there he goes. That's the Sweden contingent.
Yep. Duncan Stiles, speaking for the entire UK, he says, have tried to watch the Super Bowl, but I found it dull.
Yeah, you'll get that.
Yeah, so that is... and Pixels at Dawn says, American football has become more popular over here in the last 10 years, but it's still a late-night show for a niche.
Sort of like Australia's football for us, right? So, that's sort of what I figured. Mm-hmm. And really, the modern NFL, it's not all that great shakes, to be honest with you. I mean, if I was in another country and they brought what they've got going on now, I'd probably be like, it's not. I mean, I grew up on a different football. So did you, even you, and you're much younger. It's changed a lot.
It has.
Probably not for the better.
Yeah. Except for, it's definitely changed for the better for players of the sport because they're a lot.
I don't know. Because the guys are huger, and if you watch this season, people are just getting mashed.
Yeah.
Even with all the new rules, I mean, you can only make violent tackle football. These people are huge.
Yeah,
they're like
massive.
strategically shaped bears.
Yeah.
They're just coming and just land on each other. You know, it's insane. It won't be around for long. That's my prediction. And by the way, just before we close this up, so overall, you would like this more or less in TV sports, and would you play it again?
I'm going to punt on this one.
Oh my God! Would you just answer the question, Boat?
Because it's been too long since I played TV sports football. TV sports was like episode 50.
Okay, throw that one out. Would you play it again?
I would probably play it again if I could play it with you. I wouldn't play it single player, but it would be fun to go head to head.
All right, fair enough. So we'll give that a mixed result there. Yeah. Not the best game we played by any stretch of the imagination, but when you do a lazy port, this is what happens, and that's what it was.
All right. Well, Aaron, it is time. We've reached the end of the show. Please remember, everybody, to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram.
Yes.
We do record this show live every week. On twitch.tv/Amigos podcast. So if you want to watch live and participate in the chat, we're also going to be archiving the shows on Twitch if you're interested in what the chat often is talking about completely different things than what we are.
A wise decision.
and so you can take part in that conversation. You can see it after the fact over on Twitch. And finally, we want to thank our Patreon supporters.
No, before you start thanking them, let's take a flashback.
Okay.
I received at least one message saying that your last beautiful tune neglected to mention at least one man.
Right. We've left out. There were 2 people that were left out.
Oh no.
Okay, so unfortunately we left out John Marshall, our local
I couldn't
amigo.
believe it. I couldn't believe it. He's
and
giving you coffee, for God's sake.
one of our newest Patreon supporters, Matthew Perron, who we read a lengthy email from at the beginning of the show.
He was devastated that he didn't get to be in your song.
I'm very sorry, but I hope to make it up to you
Oh, okay.
with something that goes a little like this.
What was that?
That was, you know what impressionists
I thought
do.
you were going to
They
get out a
do.
harmonica or something.
I wish.
You're not making it up to them. I can tell you that right now. Are we starting a pornographic film? Is that what's happening here?
You're killing the mood, man.
Yeah, no, you're
was
making
setting
the
the
move kind of
scene.
weird, Boat. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRoche, Creep, Dead Boy, Figure CTZ, The Slow, Norris, Stefan, Sogard, Mortensen, Evan, Helen, Blender, 75, John Marshall, Christopher, Hassel, Ravi, Abbott, Chris, Full Street Catcher, Lauren Giroux, Graham Vebke, Randall D, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, Ed Bryans, Retro Vintage, Gary Hucker, C, Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Alan Kebab, Anthony Jarvis, tapes from The Crypt, Josh Nan, Will Williams, Adam Bradley, Neil Mansell, Jonas Rule, THE, Eric Nelson, Kim, Tommy, Dan, Yo Big Stan, Bruno Bear, Cuda Dan, Cole, Jason Warren, Pixels, Don, and Cole, Bjorn Bauman.
What the hell was that? I don't know. I have no idea what song that was.
You're too old, man. You're too old. I
No.
guarantee you, there are a lot of people my age.
Start that beginning part again. Let me hear that again.
Bone, dank, bonk, donk, dank, bone, dank, bonk.
I don't know what. I have no idea what the hell that was.
Okay, so back in the day,
Uh-huh.
in let's say between 1990 and 1993, there
Uh-huh.
was a very popular TV show based on even more popular piece of computer software called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Right, I remember that.
Okay, that was the closing theme done by Rockapella.
Really? That was?
Yep. So I may even.
Waldo needs to stay lost. I'm sorry, Carmen. My bad. See, I can't remember the theme. I've never heard of that song.
I can't believe
of
you've
all the
never.
most that's the most obscure thing I've ever heard.
That song is world famous.
No, it's. Does anyone in the chat know what the hell that was? I will pay you $5 American if anyone can name that tune.
So far, there are no.
I thought you were having a fit. I was ready to hold you down and put something in your mouth to keep you from biting your tongue.
No. Trust me, people will know. John Marshall will know.
Trust me. If anyone need to be beat, I agree. It should be both. My God.
All right, Aaron.
Man.
We are leaving the world, the exciting
What?
wide world
Oh,
of sports.
okay.
And moving on next week to do, like we talked about before, one of the most popular beat-em-ups in arcade history and its sequel.
3 of the most popular arcade beat-em-ups in history.
The Double Dragon franchise.
Would you consider the third one even a beat-em-up, or is it a beat-em-up puzzler?
You're beating yourself up when you're
Yes, you
playing that.
do. That's what I wanted to beatbox right there. That ran over my head.
Graham says, I thought it was the Brown Hornet theme at first. I don't even know what that is.
I know what the Green Hornet is, but
Maybe that was the Australian version.
the Brown Hornet.
All right, Aaron, let's get out of here. We'll see
Yeah.
you guys next time.
Adios.
All contestants have been briefed regarding game rules prior to their appearance. All geographic information was accurate as of the date this program was recorded. This program was presented by WQED Pittsburgh and WGBH Boston. And as always, Gumshoes, Carmen's Gang is bankrolled by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.